And I think most of us are here. Here. That's great. Okay, so thank you guys. The first thing I'm gonna do is ask for any public comment from anyone, from any item that is not on the agenda, either here or remotely via Zoom. People on there. Any public comment for items not on our agenda? I don't see. Did you see any on there? Okay, great, perfect. All right. Then I'm going to go and ask everyone who's already lovely reviewed the minutes to either amend, make suggestions, or approve the minutes from your packet for the August 8th. Oh, excuse me, here.
Amy? Here. Steven?
Present. Here.
Michael Clausen? Kathleen Beaufort? Here. Millie Kimuli? Aurelio Cesar? Gail Lee? Here. John McKenna?
Here.
Ethan?
Here, present.
Lemon Tree?
Michael's here.
Yay.
Ms. Sarai, if you can hear us, please unmute and signal you are here. Thank you.
I'm here.
Awesome.
Here.
You want tacos?
That's right there.
Tacos.
Robert White here.
Here.
Thank you. We have a form.
Excellent. Thank you, guys, and especially those of you who are far away and have traveled it amazingly. So thank you all. So the next thing we're going to do is approving the minutes from the August 8th meeting. Were there any corrections? Has everyone had a chance to go on YouTube and watch yourself in owl surround sound? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes and set the agenda, please.
I so move.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I get a second? Thank you, Diane. All right, can we have a roll call for the vote, please?
Diane Bailey? Approved. Steven?
Aye.
Aye.
Kathleen Beaufort? Millie? Aurelio Cesar? Gail Lee?
Aye.
John McKenna?
Aye.
Ethan Middleton?
Aye.
Lemon Tree Sarai?
Hi.
Carol Schaff?
Aye.
Remy Tan? Desiree Fair? Yes. Robert White here.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. I realize I did not ask for public comment on the approval of the minutes, so I will ask for that now in reverse order. And there isn't any, so that's great. So I'm going to go next to swearing in. I haven't met you yet, but I'm so happy to. We have remotely with us Manpreet Sarai, and we will introduce ourselves in a bit, but you're going to get sworn in here. So get ready, and our wonderful counsel, Jennifer, will hit you through that, right? I hope. So please take it away, guys.
All right, are we ready? Yes?
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead. I just wasn't sure if our new member was unmuted. If you'd repeat after me, and I'm just going to read off of this slide. I insert your name, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
She did it simultaneous with you, and I saw
Oh,
her
she
lips
did it
move.
simultaneously.
I
Wow,
wasn't
this-
sure.
This is next level, next level. Well, no, well done, well done. Well, let's continue. I have a child here with me, as you can hear.
That's right. Keep doing that. I saw you're good, so keep going.
All right. That I will bear true faith and allegiance
bear
to
the
the
true faith
Constitution
and
of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. That I will take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I don't think we need any public comment here, but I'll just say welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'm moving quickly because we have a lot today, some big items, so I'm trying to push through this. I will do very quickly a share report, which is I wanted to point out that today we have a couple of items that are probably going to have some tension. I will note the only time we haven't voted unanimously in this group has been on an issue that's on the agenda today. So I request that everybody be mindful of everybody's feelings and everybody give everyone a chance to speak. So if you feel like you're talking too much, like I usually do, stop yourself and ask for others to involve themselves. I'll point out that we don't have to come to any conclusions. We can come to some compromise conclusion, but we also have the right always to speak as individuals on the subject, even if we don't come to a conclusion here or come to one that's contrary to our own beliefs. So remember, you always can speak on these issues publicly in front of the board. But I will say that I had a lovely time with the board at the last meeting, and they all thanked Cheryl, and I want to thank her again for her leadership for the last several years here. And I'm excited for all of our new members, some of whom I've invited to things, and they may or may not have responded yet, but I'm going to work on that to get to know them and introduce them, which we're going to do next. But does anyone have any public? Also, it is neat. I was kidding about the YouTube then, but it's neat. You can go back and look up a subject you're interested in, the board did, or that we did, or any of these groups did, and see what they actually said and get a feel for what people are working on. And I think that's actually pretty interesting. It's not just the written minutes anymore. So I commend all of you to look at those, any of the topics you're interested in, more recent past or in the future, because I think you can then see, oh, maybe that's somebody I should be calling because they're really into this because they spoke about it at the board meeting. I want to reach out to that council person or whatever. And so, oh, I didn't even know that. Why don't you do that, all right? We'll do that right
We have a
now.
little certificate of commendation for
Yay.
Cheryl. For Cheryl Shum, your dedicated service as chair of the Peninsula Clean Energy Community Advisory Committee. It commends your outstanding contributions and sincerely thanks you for your time and commitment.
No gold watch?
Take you to lunch. To do that.
Thank you. And is there any public comment on my report? Okay, there being none, I then want to move on to the member introductions. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Ms. Sarai, but if you can come back on, I'd love you to just say where you're from. We're going to make you do most of this because you're the newbie. Put your name and where you're from and what you're passionate about that brought you here. And then the rest of us will do the same.
So my name is Damanpreet Sarai. I teach at a high school in Los Banos. I was born in Canada. We moved here when I was really young, so I've been a part of the Central Valley for quite some time. I'm really passionate about getting the word out about clean energy and the incentives that are available for the residents of Los Banos.
Thank you. All right, let's want to go next. We'll go around the table.
Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa Shin and I support you all as a staff member of Peninsula Clean Energy. I got into the CCA world because I formerly worked at a city and the creation of their local community choice aggregator was the one thing that brought down their emissions the most in that city. So the work that we're all doing together is so impactful and is what I'm passionate about.
Great. Kirsten Andrew Schwind, of course, support you all and live in the city of Pacifica. So I'm a PCE customer and I am passionate about the natural world and protecting it for our kids. And I think that's probably why a lot of us are here as well.
Hi, I'm Jason Mendelson. I live in Redwood City, but I've lived or worked in, I believe, 12 of the 21 jurisdictions in the area here in my lifetime. But maybe that might not be true, but whatever. But I am always been interested in this field. I did 19 years for Woodside on their, what used to be called Sustainability Committee. And the last thing I did was helped him, which was harder than you'd think, help approve the creation of PCE and joining. And I'm thrilled to be here, and I have 3 small children, and I hope that they have a world left to enjoy like I have, so that's what we're doing. Thank you.
My name is Michael Clausen, and amazingly, I've been on this committee since 2017. And I'm here because I'm a passionate environmentalist, and I've seen this organization grow and change. Almost all the change has been for the better. And so I'm just delighted to continue to serve on the board committee.
My name is Sean Marshall. It is so nice to see many of you in real life 3D instead of just on the screen. So thank you for inviting me down tonight. Really nice to see Michael Clausen and I have known each other since before 2017 when he was advocating.
Before
there was a
Peninsula Clean
name.
Energy
That's right.
invented.
That's right. So I am the CEO of PCE, have been for just a little bit over a year. Joined the agency in 2022 as the COO. Before that, had some time at Calpine Energy Solutions, which is a big energy company. That was a relatively short stint during the COVID period. Before that, for 10 years, I had a company called Lean Energy, and we did 10 startups, CCAs throughout the state of California. One of which, and really my first client was the County of San Mateo and Dave Pine and Carol Broom. And so I helped form this agency and work with the advocacy community. And I am passionate about Peninsula Clean Energy. So thank you for having me.
John McKenna, I live in Menlo Park. Like others, I'm here as a parent, and I would say I'm frightened as much as I am excited about the future.
Stephen Booker. I work for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and just want to make sure that as we move forward, we continue to think about environmental and social justice and workforce policy. So that's what I'm passionate about.
I'm Kathleen Goforth. I'm a lifelong environmentalist. I worked for the Environmental Protection Agency for about 35 years. And in retirement, I've been focusing most of my time and energy on climate change and gotten very involved in advocating for electrification of everything. Fully electrified my own house a couple of years ago, and really interested in doing as much as we can with PCE.
Hello, my name is Randy Tan. I'm an architect, 35 years in the field, and have my LEED accreditation. So I'm very familiar with a lot of the sustainability and
I'm so sorry.
energy, issues. And I'm very passionate. I'm a PCA customer as well as a rebate recipient for the EVs.
Well, you guys already know me. Got a certificate of appreciation. Put a hat on for the Gold Watch Fund here. Yeah, there you go. I am an environmentalist too for at least 7 or 8 years, kind of actively. And I kind of have a new outlook on how to describe my passion. I really want to help people develop a new lens through which to look at all the decisions that they make in their lives, from what they do at home to what they do in their offices. And when I mention that to people, they're like, oh. So anyway, that's my new tagline. And I'm also really excited about this group. There's so much wisdom here and enthusiasm, and it's just a lot of fun. So I'm really excited to be on a new journey with you guys.
Thank you. I'm Robert White here of San Mateo. I'm passionate about doing electrification workshops right now. I've done quite a few cities, and I just did one for the Elders Climate Action. It was a national workshop. We had 109 people come. We had breakout groups. And I want to tell you how much in awe Peninsula Clean Energy is held by the people all around the country, from New York to Florida to Georgia to Minnesota, Oregon, Washington. They say, oh, that's the gold standard, Peninsula Clean Energy. I'm passionate about getting that word out.
Yes.
I'm Diane Bailey. I'm a lifetime environmentalist and climate advocate. And really just happy for the chance to be a part of this agency and support the great work that PCE is doing. I was here advocating when it was forming and delighted to see it continue to produce groundbreaking programs and be a national leader. And I spent about 20 or more years in advocacy, and I'm now working in local government. So I'm extra grateful for this chance to kind of keep a little toehold into advocacy and kind of give back to the community.
Hey everyone, my name is Joseph Chen. I am relatively new in my tenure here, being the second meeting, but I'm always constantly humbled by the amount of wealth and experience that's around the room on the Zoom call as well. And it is something to strive for, because I only got into being a clean energy assessor and trying to focus on clean energy about a year and a half ago. It's been a very accelerating time, but my mission is to, over the course of however long my lifespan is, to be able to have given back more than I've taken in. And I feel like clean energy, Peninsula Clean Energy is a very big part of that, because we consume a lot of energy in our lives. So let's take a look at the big sources and try and dial that from there.
My name is Colleen Mackin. I am one of your 3 liaisons from the PCE board. I represent the city of Brisbane, where there are very enthusiastic environmentalists. And I'm thrilled to see you in person. I'm not always here in person. Logistics and scheduling conflicts are tough, but you will see me now and then when I can make it on Zoom. And it's really impressive to see all the backgrounds, the mental professionalism that all of you are bringing to this committee. It's absolutely impressive. You see different incarnations of it, but you are at a peak, and I expect great things from all of you. And I am absolutely constantly pinching myself, thrilled to be on the PCE board and involved with you, because we are doing such magnificent things, and this next year will just dazzle you. It's very exciting.
No pressure.
No.
Kidding, I'm kidding.
Truly,
We aim to dazzle, yes.
honestly, we are all on the board, so excited. I hope that enthusiasm is contagious, because we can just see everything accelerating and accelerating, and you're going to be part of it too. So pinch yourself. It's a great time to be here.
So I'm Gail Lee. I live in San Bruno. I'm the sustainability director for UC San Francisco. And I have 30 years of experience in environmental health and safety and sustainability. And I'm really excited to be here. I'm planning on retiring in January and spend more time working on environmental issues locally with PCE and what, as Robert mentioned, when I was looking at the different CCAs around the country, PCE is a model for the rest of the country. So I'm happy to be part of that, and I look forward to working with everyone in different capacities going forward.
My name is Desiree Thayer. I live in Burlingame. Like Michael, I've been here since 2017, so we're some of the originals. I really came on board because I knew this was going to have a big effect on reducing greenhouse gas emissions for the cities. Burlingame had just put in a climate action plan prior to that, and it's really helped us with that. And just seeing all the evolution that's happened with PCE. I mean, initially we were worried people were going to opt out, and now it's like, how can we get more programs and more, electrification and things out, because we do have this money to bring back into the community. So that's the exciting part.
You gotta speak. Come on your name.
Oh.
Good evening, I'm so Chief. Glad to be here. This evening. Meetings. Very, very passionate about so clean energy. We dazzle and achieve and we lead at the example. Excited to hear what we have to say this evening.
And before we take public comment, I really want to thank you, Councilperson Mackin, for coming, because I think it's very important for us to hear from you and you to hear from us directly. And I know you've been here many times on the Zoom and in person, and I really want to appreciate when you reach out. I'm sorry I was so rushing you when we talked, but I was so excited you were here. And I think it's great you just renamed the entire organization. It's now just Dazzle. That's the new. That's all that is, you got it done. So there you go. So it's wonderful you come up with that. And then again, is there any public comment on member introduction? Okay, great. Now we're into the fun stuff. So I think that Sean Marshall will lead us in the, and hopefully you guys all had a chance to look at the slides, but please take it away on the, can't see, the recommendations on the 2025-2030 Diablo Canyon Nuclear Extension Allocation.
Okay. Well, thanks again for hopefully making your way through just a preliminary preview of the slides that were sent out. I want to acknowledge straight up that it is somewhat technical. We will do our best to be methodical about this and answer your questions along the way. We wanted to provide you with the same information that was provided to the procurement subcommittee, to the executive committee, to our CBO partners just this afternoon, and then soon to the board of directors. So apologies that it is a technical presentation, but we felt it was important to just level set and have everyone getting all the same stuff. So I'm joined tonight in this presentation. I'll kick us off and then I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy Wayan, our Senior Director of Regulatory Affairs, who will give us the background and kind of an updated regulatory context that we're living in today. And then Roy Zhu, who is our Director of Power Resources, will talk to us about kind of the impact on power resources and 3 options that our board will be considering in about 2 weeks. And we'll would like to get your feedback on that. Okay, so I think I just went through this. Tonight's discussion, although it's, you know, complicated and in some cases you might feel like you're going down the rabbit hole, really what we're looking at is a choice around, do we accept an allocation of attributes, we're going to talk about that in a minute, in order to save millions of dollars over the next 5 to 6 years and risk some level of, you know, reputational optics risk. We'll talk about, because if we did this, it would show up on our power content label, which is a public document. Or do we go ahead and avoid that $1 million? So in other words, do we not save the money? On the other hand, do we not save the money? We leave that on the table and then have no public risk at all. So this is not about procuring nuclear power. We've never procured under contract nuclear power. There are no plans at this point to do so. That is not what this is about tonight. This is not about establishing any policy or influencing California policy. It's pretty technical and has impact, but it's not as big as you might think. So maybe I'll just kick it off that way. All right. In November of 2020, our board of directors had a similar decision to make, and on a split vote ultimately decided not to accept the allocation from Diablo Canyon because they were worried about public optics, what that would look like, and also concerned at the time that it might extend our reliance on Diablo Canyon land. The truth of the matter is that by turning it away, it did not have any bearing at all, because Diablo Canyon in 2022 was ordered to remain open until 2030 for state reliability reasons that Jeremy will talk about. So today, here we are again, but it is a different regulatory and certainly a different economic environment than in 2020. So I want to stop here, and Cheryl, I'm going to have you be our litmus test if we do better on this. So we wanted this to level set and have you understand a couple of definitions, because it really impacts sort of the framing and the thinking around this discussion. So what we're talking about here is an allocation that is from the CPUC and PG&E of nuclear attributes that are considered carbon-free in the state of California. An allocation, right, is just our piece of the pie. So PCE, they allocate it to all load serving entities and CCAs based on your load share and your load size. So for us, that allocation is about 1.5%, I believe you said, Roy, 1 to 2% of our overall load. So this just gives you an idea of how small the allocation is when you look at it in the totality of our entire load for our community. An attribute is the thing that is being offered, okay? It's the actual energy is not what we're talking about here. So an attribute is, and I'm gonna read it first and then provide an analogy and see if it works. It is the accounting or reporting value of a unit of energy, in this case, a carbon-free value for the unit of energy. It is not physical energy. So my analogy here, there's two. Roy gave us one and I'm gonna try mine first, then we'll go to Roy. My analogy here is, double stick tape. When you buy double stick tape, what you're actually buying is the tape, right? That is, in this case, would be the electrons, the actual energy. But it peels off. There's a peel on the top, right? So what you're peeling off, let's just say the analogy is that peel is the attribute. It went with that at one time, but it has split off. Another analogy we came up with is when you go to Disneyland, you can buy a regular ticket or you can buy a fast pass ticket. That's, like an add-on, right? You can buy them separately, you can buy them together, whatever you choose to do. So Roy's analogy is the Diablo Canyon attribute is like them having a bunch of fast passes that they are allocating out. I have no idea if that worked, but what I want to say, I tried. What I really want to say is the attribute here that we're talking about, it is a term of art, so can't call it something else. That's what it is. It is not a unit of physical energy that goes onto the grid. That's important to know. All right.
Sean, can you just clarify one thing?
Yes, please.
I'm starting to get it. So when you say our allocation is something like 1.4 or whatever you said.
1.5, yeah.
So that means that Diablo Canyon then is providing this energy to PG&E, and they're just saying we would get that much if we need it because that's how much energy we're providing in the service area.
That would be our pro rata share.
I see.
Within the service
Okay,
area.
now does that mean that, but you've said before, we've never, just want to make sure. So are we using that energy or are we not?
No, that's already going on the grid.
Okay,
So when
okay.
the legislature
Okay.
passed legislation to keep Diablo Canyon open,
Mhm.
that power is going onto the grid. It's already been on the grid. It's re-upping, right, for another 5-year period.
Mhm.
That power is flowing to the grid through PG&E. All customers now in the state of California are going to start paying for that in 2025, regardless of what the board decides to do. So the actual physical power is not what is debatable tonight, because that's already happening. Okay.
Is this basically like a carbon credit, but we're not, there's no trading of it?
That's right. That's
But
right.
it's same basic concept?
Similar, I would say. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's keep going.
Yep.
Let it, oh, yes, please, and then we'll get into it.
So why is this necessary?
I mean, it's, you asked that earlier. Why are we even talking about this? Honestly, it's a great question, and part of it, as a new leader of the organization, knowing that it was contentious 4 years ago, knowing that there might be an issue with it, felt like the transparent and the right thing to do.
I mean, why are attributes necessary?
Oh, well, so that's an energy, that is a function of the business that we're in, because you know that even renewable energy has attributes, right? And those are the attributes for the renewable energy credit that goes with that unit of energy. So energy attributes are something that are ubiquitous across the way our business runs. So that's the best I can do to say why. So, I mean, maybe, we'll see. If this is not a big deal, then maybe there's a different sort of, but I wanted to be true to the memory and making sure we do it right. That's why we're talking about it. All right, let's go through this. And if the story is not told properly, please ask more questions. Okay, so Thank you. All right, so here's what the decision is and is not, that will be going before the board. We're gonna focus on the impacts to PCE and its customers only, okay? The decision is whether or not to accept or reject carbon-free attributes, not actual energy, from Diablo Canyon for the 6-year period 25 to 2030, okay? Those are free because customers are already paying for them starting in 2025. And they have a value to us in the form of avoided procurement cost, which Roy is going to talk about, okay? It's also a decision that affects our power content label. So many of you may be familiar with this. It is a postcard, it is an email, it is a disclosure that all load serving entities and CCAs must send to customers every single summer that specifies the types of power we have in our portfolio, all the way down to using system power. And PG&E has to do the same. So it's our power content, our different products, and that gets sent out every summer. So where this would show up is the power content label, okay? Doesn't show up on our website. I mean, it's like, this is really where it hits the public facing piece of it, okay? This is not what it is not. It is not us contracting or buying nuclear power. It is not us adding new nuclear to the grid. It is not us making a decision that would impact state policy to develop nuclear power in California. In fact, there is a law in the books that prohibits that until the federal government has figured out what to do with the waste. So that law's been on our California books since 1976. Okay, and I'm gonna turn this over. My last one is this, just to set us up. Acceptance or rejection of the allocation, that sliver of pie, will have no impact on the extension of Diablo Canyon operations. That has already happened and been decided by our legislature. Over the next 6 years, Diablo Canyon will continue to run at full capacity. Peninsula Clean Energy cannot cause the plant to stop, decrease, or increase operations. So I'm just letting you know, like, the decision has really no bearing on their operations. Every customer in the state will be paying for it starting in January. And that's going to be showing up as a non-bypassable charge on the T&D side of your bill, okay? Not on the gen side. Already said a lot. PCE's decision has no impact on the physical grid. And then we are going to continue receiving a resource adequacy allocation as part of DC operations. The resource adequacy RA compliance is a huge component of our time and our budget. And the DC Diablo Canyon operations, we do get that to support our RA. Yes.
Do you have a sense of what that non-bypassable charge is likely to be for the customers?
I'm gonna defer that to either Jeremy or Roy, who may know. I do not.
Okay.
So did you guys hear the question was, do we have any sense of what that charge will be per customer? So I'll let you guys chew on that for a minute, and if you can answer it, otherwise we'll get back to you, okay? All right, so that.
Can I ask a clarification?
Yes, and then we'll move on.
That last point, so PCE is now receiving that RA allocation, or we're asking whether we should?
I believe we already are. So Roy, I want to confirm that we already are for RA.
For RA, we are already been allocated CAM allocation for RA. Yes. So that our election here, or the subject of today's discussion, does not impact this RA allocation from Diablo Canyon.
It's a separate issue. Okay. That is it for me setting up here. Now we're going to dive into the detail. Any questions before we move on to Jeremy? Who's going to be our historian and regulatory, provide some context here. Yes.
So they're going to various organizations like this, attempting to get this to us to select these attributes. What happens if nobody selects the attribute?
We're going to talk about that. They go into an account and they do not show up on any power content label. They cannot be resold. PG&E cannot claim that. But Jeremy's going to say more about it.
John, I have a question.
Sure.
Could you just give a couple more sentences around the statement that you made that in 2020, the board rejected this option. And you said it was because, and now we're in a different regulatory and economic environment. Can you just give us a couple sentences about
And you're
what's so
gonna hear
different
it.
now?
So the economic environment is that has been for the last about 18 months, a real focus on affordability and customer rates. People are squawking. And it's not just PCE, it's really focused on it. And so really the focus has been on what do we do to keep our rates down, which has budget implications. At the same time, the cost of energy and resource adequacy has gone up probably 3x or 5x. Roy could say more about that. So we're dealing in this sort of economic environment that is different and frankly more challenging than 2020.
Thank you.
Okay, very good.
I have a question on what you said about the, I guess, the non-generation side of the PG&E bill. So whether you're a PCE customer or not, whether you have PCE 100 or PCE basic or whatever it is, you have to pay the Diablo Canyon Valley charge from PG&E to
Everyone in the
maintain
state.
and run and decommission that plant in 2030, right?
That's correct. And Jeremy's about to tell us why. But that is correct.
Yeah, I can. So regards to this decision the board and the PCE makes regarding this attribute, that doesn't change that side of it.
Correct. Okay. All right, Jeremy, to you. Thank you.
Hey there. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right. I've got a bit of a cold, so my voice is a little off, and hopefully the connectivity is working well. So for a little primer on Diablo Canyon, for those less familiar with it, it is the last operating nuclear power plant in California. It's located in San Luis Obispo on the coastline, owned and operated by PG&E. Generates just over 2 gigawatts of capacity through its 2 reactors. And if you look at the picture there and see the 2 domes, each one of those domes houses one of those reactors. Been in operation since the mid-80s. And it is currently authorized under federal nuclear licensing to operate until 1 reactor until later this year, and the next reactor until late next year. And part of the reason why those dates are so close is because some years back, PG&E decided that they did not want to continue operating this plant, and they started the formal steps with the Public Utilities Commission to seek permission to shutter the plant. They also got themselves out of the queue with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to relicense the plant. And fast forward a few more years, we can go to the next slide. The state decided otherwise. They decided that this plant is too important for California's electricity reliability and too important for maintaining our progress towards our climate goals and greenhouse gas reduction goals. And so Sean mentioned that this item has come to the PCE board before. That was in 2020. So it was in this period where everyone thought Diablo Canyon was about to retire. However, there were a lot of op-eds being run by certain perspectives arguing that it was naive for the state to be retiring a nuclear plant right when we're trying to address carbon emissions and climate change. And in those years, 2020, 2021, 2022, we had very hot summers, lots of fires, and lots of reliability challenges for electricity service. And I think that really set the political tone for the conversation around should we reevaluate whether this resource retires or not. And that ended up being budgetary legislation that extended the life of Diablo Canyon for another 5 years past those retirement dates in 2024 and 2025. And a lot of the thinking behind that front and center was reliability. There are other plants that we're trying to retire as well, such as some of the old gas plants, once-through cooling plants. And Diablo Canyon being such a large facility, that amount of capacity rolling off would be very, very hard to replace quickly. There were also, it is a carbon-free resource, even though it has other environmental considerations we'll get into later. And there were economic considerations as capacity prices have been climbing, as REC prices have been climbing. it went from Diablo Canyon seeming like such an expensive resource to actually closer to market rate of for capacity and greenhouse gas free attributes. And there was all this factored into the policy and the political consideration. And I would say there's one other item that isn't on this list, but is important, which is kind of an equity lens as well. Diablo Canyon generates through all hours of the day, 24/7. So it is one of the main resources that's providing energy to California at night. And it's much more challenging to provide renewable energy to customers at nighttime. So other than a few key attributes like geothermal for some of the load, if Diablo Canyon were to retire, we would be leaning much more heavily on California's gas fleet and much more heavily on some of those once through cooling power plants that are located in disadvantaged communities that have real local air quality pollution concerns associated with their operation. So there is very much a equity and environmental impact consideration arguing for the continued reliance on this power plant. So we don't lean too heavily on the other alternative, which is the gas plant. Next slide. Act 1. So the extension of this plant was one grand bargain negotiated by the Newsom administration and the whole legislature. And there were a number of key elements. One of them was this requirement that greenhouse gas from Diablo Canyon to the various load-serving entities whose customers are helping pay for the continued use of this plant. And if we take those allocations, we then do need to report them on what's called a power content label as part of our resource mix. And Roy will get into the finer points of that later. If we don't take these allocations, they go into an account that is really kind of an abyss. They are non-transactable. They don't go back to PG&E so that PG&E can further embellish their greenhouse gas free content of their portfolio. It's simply kind of a use it or lose it arrangement, these allocations. Next slide.
Got it? Okay, cool, all right.
So there are some very real risks and concerns with this facility. There's historic risks and concerns associated with it. Shortly after building the facility, they realized they built it very close to a number of earthquake faults within the 1 to 8 mile range. It is right on the coastline for operational reasons, kind of jumping around, but nuclear power generates a lot of heat and requires a lot of water to cool. And so it's for these plants to be economically viable, at least in the technology of the time, it had to be near a very large body of water like an ocean. So there is a very real risk being on the coastline of being exposed to tsunami waves as well, which is what we saw with Fukushima and Japan. So there are very real concerns. Plenty of prior examples of nuclear power plants only takes one to leave a lasting impression in everyone. There are also very real concerns around the storage of the waste that's generated from these facilities, the spent fuel rods. Presently, the federal government does not have any long-term solution for storing this waste. And so the vast majority of spent fuel is actually housed in special barrels of sorts, containment chambers on the sites of these nuclear reactors. And even after these reactors decommission, they're still housing radioactive materials because there simply isn't a better place to put them. There's been a long storied conversation around the construction of Yucca Mountain as a long-term storage solution, but that hasn't penciled out yet. So there's a very open-ended question that's been plaguing our government for decades now about what to do with the waste we're generating. Mentioned the water use. There's environmental considerations as well, both in terms of contamination, such as any radiation somehow getting into that water flow would be an example, but also there's environmental and socioeconomic and geopolitical considerations about where the uranium that's the core fuel for these plants is sourced from. And then there are just very high costs associated with these facilities. A big part of why PG&E planned to retire Diablo and requested that back in 2018 was because they had discovered there were some evidence of where some cracks in the foundations and such that were going to be very, very costly to repair. And part of this grand bargain with the legislature was to provide a large forgivable loan from the state to PG&E to help shore up the facility to maintain its reliable, safe operations. There is a lot of money that's been directed towards this plant to keep it around for those next 5 years. Even after that period, the decommissioning of this plant is going to be, since that's the last little bit of concrete and steel that makes up this plant, is going to be safely handled because it may have various levels of radiation in it. And that too has to be stored in a secure facility. Though, depending on how reactive, it may not be quite as costly to store as the spent fuel rods themselves. And next slide. And as Sean already mentioned, there is a moratorium in California against the building of new nuclear facilities that's been in place since the 70s that is contingent upon, it's in place until the federal government determines a long-term fuel storage solution for the spent nuclear fuel. It's been 50 years and they haven't figured it out yet. I have a great deal of confidence they'll solve it too soon. There were some prior questions about the costs and the cost allocation and the non-bypassable charge. Historically, to date, PG&E's Diablo Canada has been part of PG&E's generation fleet. So it's been paid for through PG&E's generation rates, and our customers through the PCIA have been helping pay for this resources costs as well, the out-of-market portion of the resource costs. With this new grand bargain to keep it around for another 5 years, and because it's a statewide benefit and a statewide need that's being addressed, they've negotiated a cost recovery where ratepayers all through the large utilities service areas are helping pay for this resource. And how much they pay varies. PG&E's customers, those in PG&E service area, pay the highest amount. But that's in part because PG&E can then sell the excess power that's being generated by this plant and make some revenue to offset it. But it's roughly, I'm looking at an article here, estimating it about $2 a month for a typical PG&E customer. So that's it for my section. It's a little hard for me to tell if there are questions within the room. So maybe if there are, Sean, you can help facilitate that.
Anything for Jeremy? Okay, I don't see any now, Jeremy, but if I could ask you to stay through the presentation,
Sure.
I'd appreciate it. Okay, next we'll
Roy.
go to Roy. Roy's our Director of
Yeah.
Power Resources. He's going to talk to us about these three scenarios, these three options relative now to the power content label and the economic impact of the decision. Okay, go ahead, Roy.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Jeremy. Good evening, everyone. My name is Roy Xu, Director of Power Resources. I'm going to talk about how this Diablo Canyon extension allocation would impact our power content label and avoided costs from procurement. Next slide, please. So my team and I, Power Resources, we're tasked or responsible for procuring power and energy to serve our customers. So in addition to energy, we procure quite a bit of energy-related products, and one of which is these carbon-free attributes. The board has adopted a new target for 100% renewable energy by 2030. And so prior to 2030, in order to continue to serve our Eco Plus customers with 100% clean energy, we will have to rely on carbon-free energy. And the carbon-free energy comes from primarily two sources, large hydro and nuclear. And up to this date, we have been procuring large hydro generation that generates these carbon-free attributes. And we have not procured nuclear generation. And that's why this topic becomes relevant. Carbon-free attributes from large hydro are now transacting the market at very high prices and with limited availability. So what this all means is that there is a need from a procurement standpoint for carbon-free attributes that's coming in free, although the cost has been spread throughout the state. So accepting this nuclear allocation would mean that we'll reduce the amount of carbon-free attributes that PCE currently plans to procure, and thereby lowering our procurement costs. And the benefit of that will be distributed to all our customers. Okay, next slide, please. So as we talked about, this allocation is a 6-year allocation. PCE will have the ability to decide annually whether to take the allocation for that particular year or not. We are asking for the board, or we will be asking the board to approve the authority for Sean and Power Resources team to decide the allocation based on portfolio needs. But the election itself is on an annual basis. And I also want to make one clarification that the 1.5% allocation ratio is our estimate of what we will be allocated, and that is 1.5% of the total allocation amount that goes to everybody.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Okay, so the last point on this slide is was also mentioned before, that any unclaimed allocation, let's say PC decides not to take it for 2025, PG&E is not allowed to use that unclaimed portion for their own benefit or to claim it on their power content label. And they cannot resell it. If we take it, we cannot resell it either. So we have to use it. Next slide, please. So this is the most recent power content label for PCE from 2022, 2023. Power content label is not yet ready. As you can see on the columns to the right, there's Eco Plus, which is one of our products. Eco 100 is another product. We have a couple retail products. But if you look across, there's the nuclear row, and it's 0 across the board for all our products. And the last row to the right is the California average, and it shows 9.2% for nuclear across the state. So this power content label is going to change. It's really a coincidence that the nuclear power allocation and the change of the power content label is happening at the same time. So what will change is that in addition to these retail products, there will be a new column called total power content, which will be the summation of our retail products plus line losses. So the state has decided, or our regulatory agencies have decided, it's only fair to include losses in our power content label to account for the true amount of power that we consume from the grid. So in the future, there will be a total power content column, and that will include line loss. Next slide, please. So this slide basically captures what I just discussed, the CEC's new reporting requirement for the power content. It will include line loss in its total power content column, and the proposed loss percentage is 4% for all in-state resources in our portfolio and 6% for all out-of-state resources in the portfolio. In addition to that, the CEC, which is the California Energy Commission, created this oversupply account that Sean sort of mentioned earlier. So if there is excess resource in addition to our load, including the losses, all these excess resources can be placed in these oversupply accounts so that they do not show up in our power content label under any particular retail products. So this requirement will be implemented starting in 2025, and we LLCs or CCAs do not have the ability to change how this power content looks like. Okay, next slide, please. So the options on the table for us to consider, there are 3. One is pretty simple, it's status quo, which is we don't take any Diablo Canyon extension allocation. So if we don't take anything, then the nuclear row on power content label will remain to be 0. But then we also don't get any economic value from these free allocation, and so the incremental saving is 0. And let's talk about scenario 3 first, which is the all-in assumption. We have to take, so we take the full Diablo Canyon allocation, and we don't have the option to take partial. We use the entire Diablo Canyon allocation to serve our product contents. Then it will show up under Eco Plus, our retail product, and it will also show up under the total power content column. But this scenario option will generate the most saving from a procurement standpoint. And the sum is about $39 million over the 6 year of the extension period. And now we look at the middle column, which is sort of the middle ground. We take the DC allocation, Diablo Canyon allocation, but we use only a portion of it to cover the line loss under the total power content column. This way, the nuclear percentage under Eco Plus, our retail product, will remain to be 0. The only place that it will show up is under the total power content to cover line loss. So this approach will generate about $29 million saving over 6 years. So the next 3 slides will show a mock 2025 power content label for each of the scenarios. Next slide, please. So this is scenario 1. As you can see, this power content label for 2025 is very different from the one that we showed on the earlier slide for 2022. First thing to point out is up at the very top, all our product contents, all our products, retail products, will have 0 emissions starting in 2025. So that's very good. We're ultra green. And then you will notice that there's some color coding to divide up the resource types. Everything that's in green is considered renewable or 0 carbon. As you can see, the geothermal, solar, wind are grouped together with large hydro and nuclear, which are not renewable but carbon-free. Then there's the red section, which is natural gas, coal, and unspecified power from the grid, which has emissions. So under this scenario, the highlighted row, which is nuclear, shows 0 across the board, just like how it shows today in our power content label. Again, this option will generate no savings from avoided cost. Next slide, please. So this is the mock PCL for the middle ground approach. The only place that nuclear will show a number that's not 0 is under the total power content. If you recall, that's the new column that includes loss. So we're just using nuclear allocation from Diablo Canyon to cover loss. It will not show anything under any of our retail products. So under this approach, there will be, based on our estimates, excess nuclear allocation that we elected to take, but decided not to show or not to use or apply to our products, or even to our products. Therefore, we put them in an oversupply account that will store these excess nuclear allocation. So the only place we'll show is in the total power content. So under this approach, the estimate saving for 2025 will be $6 million, and it'll be about $29 million over 6 years. And the equivalent amount of bill saving for an average residential customer will be about $35 over 6 years. Next slide, please. So scenario 3 is the all-in approach. We take everything, we use everything. And in this approach, as you can see under Eco Plus, there will be about 2.3% of a nuclear showing up on the power content label, along with a higher amount under total power content, which now includes both Eco Plus and the line loss. So this scenario will generate the most savings because we're using everything that were allocated. So the 2025 estimated savings is about $9.1 million and $39 million over 6 years. And that translates into about $48 of customer bill savings over 6 years. So this is my last slide. I can stop here, take questions, or Sean, you would like to finish the last few slides? I can also do that.
Are there any questions about this, and then we'll wrap up and have discussion?
Can I just get back up a second? So in this scenario, it's bill savings of $12 basically for the year. So each year it's about $12 per customer?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the scenario 2 was how much?
$8.
$8.
But please keep in mind, these are assumptions at this point.
Right.
Could be less or more.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question on the scenario 3. Will there be a different savings for the Eco Plus customers who are getting the allocation of the nuclear versus the Eco 100 transit and access?
No, because there's already a premium placed on the Eco 100 customers. So it would not, so in other words, the answer to the question is it will not affect rate setting for the Eco Plus customer.
So.
We set our rates across,
Lower cost.
not at this time, we set our rates across all of our products, with the exception that there's a premium on Eco 100 because they're getting 100% renewable, 100% carbon free.
Okay.
Okay.
I attended a session this afternoon with the partners, and I heard $48. Is that for the entire term of the allocation, or is it $12 per year? I just heard $12 per year.
$12 per year, so it's not, this really is not really a super high energy rate savings opportunity. It
So-
saves on procurement costs,
It's $12 a year.
but when it distills down across all customers, it's pretty de minimis.
Can we, in PCE, only use the savings for rates? Because if you look at $39 million over 6 years, that could fully electrify 1,300 low-income homes. So could the money be used that way instead?
So it's important, and then Roy, feel free to jump in here, but this is not money that we're going to receive, right? This is avoided cost. This is avoided procurement cost that customers have already paid for. So indirectly, yes, right? Because it's helping keep our budget in check. And so then the board will have a decision to make when the budget is held in check. How much of that do you pass on to customers in the form of rate savings versus put into programs, et cetera, et cetera.
So that's to be determined still.
To be determined. Power resources is about 88% of our budget. It's the 900-pound gorilla in our budget. So for us, anything we can do to kind of keep that contained has a spillover effect for the rest of our operations.
And then line loss is just like you buy a certain amount of energy, but you only get a percentage of that at the actual where it's used.
Yes.
Okay, because
And then-
it loses through transmission.
Yes, and the new regulation is basically saying we have to make up for that.
Right.
Which means then now we have to go out and procure more, spend more to buy attributes. These would be available to us for free.
Okay, so I have sort of a context question. Is there a target amount of carbon-free attributes that PCE needs to procure every year?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And am I correct in remembering from one of the early trainings, I think, that whenever we purchase or procure power from a solar plant or from a hydro facility, we're procuring the power and we procure the
attribute.
The attribute.
Not always.
Is, oh, okay. But that attribute is the same sort of thing as what we're talking about
Yes.
here? Okay.
Well, but that attribute is a renewable energy.
A renewable
attribute.
energy.
This is a carbon-free
It's
attribute.
carbon-free, but the same basic idea that it typically would be kind of sold, stuck together like your tape thing, with the power, but doesn't have to be. So in this case, this would be like if we were going to some solar facility and saying, well, we don't actually need your power, but we'd like some of your renewable credit, we could be doing that.
Similar.
So in this case, we don't want your nuclear power, but
Similar.
we'll be happy to take some of your carbon-free credit. Okay, I'm getting it.
You're doing
That's
well.
correct. But we're not being offered the nuclear energy, to be clear. We're just being offered the attributes. So the
maybe
energy from a Diablo Canyon facility is being sold to the grid.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so these scenarios that you've got sort of trickles down to about, it's the equivalent of about $8 a customer for your middle ground scenario of a savings, but that's not necessarily going to show up as a customer savings. You're just saying that for kind of
Yeah, we-
illustrative purposes of.
We
What
debated,
it
like,
ends
should
up
we
being.
include that? Because really what it's meant to do is sort of just show when you trickle it all
Yeah.
down or you spread it across all of our customers. If we were talking about this as a rate savings methodology, that's not the reason to do it.
Okay,
But we wanted to be transparent and sort of say, here's what the savings is from an avoided cost on our procurement budget, which is huge.
yeah,
Versus, if it were just spread across people's bills, really it's modest is being
Okay.
nice about it.
and the reason I was trying to make sure I was getting that clear was because then we were also talking about this non-bypassable charge that will in reality be an added thing on people's bills, but it's $2 a month, so we're not talking about a huge addition there. $2 is $2, but
That's already happening.
that's already happening. I
correct.
was wondering, I guess I was trying to figure out if the savings would offset that increase for people a little bit.
I don't know yet. It
Sell it.
depends on what the board decides to do with rates. This helps, right? Because everything that we don't spend helps us deepen the discounts. But that's taken up separately because we also have to look at that juxtaposed to what PG&E may be doing with rates and all of it. So that's why I said it's an indirect relationship. Because what it's really doing is helping the budget as opposed to having a direct translation to rates.
Okay.
I do two more questions from Michael and Joseph, and let you, your slides will.
Sure, you bet.
Do you have a question still?
Yeah, I still have a question.
We back?
You know, I'm trying to frame it. Well, the real issue here is nuclear power and the perception of receiving nuclear power, right? Isn't that why the board turned it down the first time?
That was one of the concerns, yep. Yeah, perception,
The perception.
not reality, but
Yeah.
perception.
Because there are clear financial benefits to accepting this allocation, right? And so the organization has to decide whether the financial benefits outweigh the perception.
Correct. That's really it. That's right.
And it seems to me the middle ground is the phony place. I mean, you're still receiving, it may not show up as clearly, but you're still receiving these attributes.
Yep.
So it's like you're kind of hiding a little bit and not spreading it across all the categories, but you're still taking it.
Well, you would be retiring whatever oversupply you just would not be using. It would go into that oversupply account, but yeah, point taken.
Let me have Joseph a question, then we'll do our discussion, if it's okay.
Are these
And
questions?
I want to get through Sean, but Joseph.
Yes, and you answered this already, so this is just review for me, but you had mentioned that the non-bypassable charges that would already show up on an individual's bill moving forward, nothing that is discussed today, any decisions that made would change anything that would happen with that non-bypassable charge, right? It would show up regardless, okay.
There's more questions?
I forgot.
It's me all the time.
I want to let Sean do the.
It'll be so quick. Let me just wrap and then we'll get into more discussion here. Okay, so this is just background. Just to let you know, these are the steps that we have taken and are taking. We're in the middle there, 9/12. We met today with our CBO partners. They did a little pulse poll through Zoom. We're not on Zoom, so we're not going to do that tonight. Then it goes to the board in 2 weeks. If the board decides to elect to take that, then there's paperwork and things to do in November, December. But again, to your point, regardless, in January, you're gonna start seeing that on your bill. Here's what other LSEs, load serving entities and CCAs are doing. We do this for the board a lot, just to benchmark what our sister agencies have done and are doing. So this is all in the last allocation, the 2020. So you can see a number of our sister agencies took it and are planning to continue. And then there's a couple additional CCAs there to the right that are considering the same thing that PCE is this month. So this really is just my summary slide to serve up some discussion points. So it's like on the one hand this, on the other hand that, kind of getting to your point, Michael. So a nuclear allocation is going to help us. reach our GHG-free goals, and save significant money due to avoided procurement costs. Our priorities now, as I've mentioned, include customer affordability and expanded renewable power and expanded programs, all of which cost money. So it really is all about looking at the budget in many ways. Multiple CCAs have taken the allocation and has not been a big issue. We definitely tracked that because we wanted to make sure that we didn't do anything that was going to create a big uproar in our community. On the other hand, as we've seen, the avoided procurement costs are pretty, when you look at it in the overall grand scheme of our procurement budget, it only represents 1 to 2% of our budget. The potential for customer cost savings is minor, as we've just seen. However, we looked at the data of, the number of click-throughs, the number of views we get on that power content label, because that's really what we're talking about here. And what we found here is that it's really small. Only 2% of our customers, representing 4,900, click through to view the postcard. And only 15 direct mail recipients actually did the QR code to look at the postcard. So that's sort of putting in perspective the level of this sort of optics issue or concern that we wanted to kind of pull out both. So that concludes my remarks, and we'll go to questions and comments.
So actually, that last bullet point actually answered the question that I thought I forgot, because I'm wondering, see, so what you're saying is, worst case, let's say all your customers are anti-nuclear, only 2% actually read the thing, so your customer loss is only 2%.
We have not tracked customer, we haven't had a nuclear allocation, so there's no customer loss associated.
No, I'm just, yeah. I mean, I'm making the worst case assumption, saying all of our customers are anti-nuclear. But only 2% actually open that thing and look at it. So your potential loss is, the maximum is 2%. And if that happens, what's your impact on your bottom line?
2%, I mean, we wouldn't like it. I don't believe that will happen, but it's not the end of the world. Let's
Does
put it
that kind of offset the savings?
We could come back to you with that. I haven't done the math on that one,
And
but
of
we can
course,
include that in a board discussion.
That comes out in the blogosphere, internet, whatever they call these things nowadays, that, PCE is now doing dangerous energy, and then suddenly you lose more than 2%, what is that risk?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what the risk.
I don't know, so we will be sure and have that information though at the board meeting.
Okay, so you are researching that?
We
That's a
will.
very important question.
I think the risk would be low, but we will look at those numbers and kind of where that break even.
Thanks.
So you said the main effect is on the procurement budget. And I think somebody maybe asked this earlier, and I was thinking something else and didn't focus on the answer. Does that savings have to stay in the procurement budget, or could the money be directed to some program that we wanted to do? Or
Up to the board of directors.
okay, so that
But
is
understand that it's not money that we are receiving.
right. So it's money that we would not be spending.
That's right.
On this, so we have it for other things, and it could
Potentially.
be whatever board decided it wanted to use it for.
Stephen and Raphael and then Robert.
Hey, just to cut to the chase for the record, I'm all in. But those optics, if there were worst case scenario and they were to leave PCE to go where?
Right.
The PG&E it's already on the grid, and
Oh, meaning if they opt out, if
To
a
do-
customer
to
opts
do what?
out, you're actually getting more nuclear in the mix.
I mean, am I
It
wrong?
matters, people don't really understand that.
Raphael?
That's a good point.
Oh, my goodness.
Chipmunks.
Your kid did that to you. He pushed a button on your computer.
We'll come back to you.
What's happened before. How are you gonna handle this discussion among the committee? We have a presentation, then there's a break, and then go to the commission, or the committee.
Oh, I think I was just gonna get as many questions and I think we'd have a discussion. And I would encourage everyone to both ask, both state.
Do I sound better?
Well, it depends.
Go around the table.
I kind of liked it the other way.
Yeah, I still think I want to do the questions.
That's just me though.
First, directly related to this, and then have the discussion when we're exhausted, then have more questions at the end. But, okay, Raphael, if you're human again, go ahead.
Am I human? No, I was just gonna make the point that Stephen Booker made, and that is, yeah, if someone opts out, they're gonna actually get more nuclear. But, and then the other point, you know, in terms of budget impact, is that, you know, $6 billion is about 20 to 25% of the program budget. And so from that standpoint, that could be potentially material in terms of programs that we may have to pull back on if the budget is compressed due to high procurement costs.
Say that last part again.
It represents, so the estimated 6 million next year represents about 25% of the program's budget.
Okay.
Wow.
So that, you know, if we have to tighten our belt, because the next couple of years look tight, then that potentially is 25% of that program's budget.
Okay.
You're looking at some apples to apples.
Or you can raise the rates.
We would rather not do that.
Can I get a quick recommendation before we go around, because it's late? Should we take a snap poll to see where we're at? And if the majority is in one place, then maybe we don't spend the next hour debating? Just a thought.
I'm open to that. Does anyone object to that?
All in.
Okay, wait, we should go around. We should go
around.
What, up to you.
What do you suggest?
Oh, just go around
Just say your opinion?
or vote if you want to call.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I do think there are some things I wanted to say, but I want to hear from everybody first. We can do that after too. I'll say it whether it's 15-1 or not, I'll still say it, but go ahead. Do you want to do it, or Desiree, do you want to have it? And you can also abstain from voting if you haven't made up your mind to.
Yeah.
Well, I think one other comment I kind of want to make is, I know a lot of people don't look at the power content label, but in our brochure, we often compare, you know, the Eco 100 to Eco Plus. Now, I think we can arrange that so that nuclear could fall under other carbon free or something like that, right? But I think that is one other thing we should think about, like, how would that look? 'Cause that's something we do show to customers, and maybe that whole brochure is going to change now that Eco 100 is going to be potentially phased out. So just something to think about.
Anybody else? Let's do it then. How are you feeling? You can say nothing too. I'll start with you because you're.
I'm feeling like 2 or 3, but I think it's probably best to just do all in. I mean, if we're taking it, like, why just leave some behind and kind of play with the numbers, like Michael said?
Can somebody, you want to write?
I'm keeping a tally, but not with your name.
$70, $30.
What?
30-1, okay.
Wait, say it again?
I'm feeling 70% in favor of three, and 30% over.
30% you're taking nothing. I get it.
He's torn.
He's 70% for taking everything and 30% for taking nothing.
All right, I got that.
That just broke my brain. Okay.
It's been broken all day.
Okay, I have some comments, but I want to go after Michael, but I'm all in, like Stephen. I think it's the fiscally responsible thing to do. And I think it's the climate responsible thing to do, to take the attributes. And I hate nuclear, I'll be honest. I worry about all of the things that Jeremy talked about, all the drawbacks with nuclear. It's very problematic, but our decision doesn't impact whether Diablo stays open or not. So my sense is take the money, and I just want to underscore the head. We're in a climate crisis and a lot of people are making tough decisions. This is one of them. We have to hold our nose. It's not pleasant. But I just want to draw an analogy with the Audubon Society, which supports wind turbines, even though they know that some birds will be killed, and they're pro-bird. And they do that because they recognize we're in a climate crisis. We have to get off fossil fuels. We need to embrace renewables to do that. One big renewable of which is wind. And they know that down the road, more bird species will go extinct if they don't support renewables. And so they make the hard choice, knowing that it harms the thing they love, but in the long run, it's better for the environment, better for their cause. So I just want to urge all of us to think about that bigger picture and whether we can convince ratepayers that we care about their bills. And also in this environment where consumers are starting to question whether it makes sense to electrify because rates are so high. Do we want to take steps to reduce rates and at least show our customers that we're taking steps to reduce rates? Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
I'm gonna vote one, and I want to have some time to explain my reasoning. It's really time to close down Diablo once and for all. You know, accepting money from the allocation really only delays the inevitable. That place is unsafe. It's sitting there subject to tsunamis. It's going to be a problem for a long time. And Diane talked about difficult decisions. I feel the same way, but for a different reason. We can no longer promise the moon to everybody. The climate crisis fix is going to be extremely difficult. We haven't even begun to look at how difficult it's going to be. And this is time to take its hard stance against the Diablo Canyon. Because I know what's going to happen to 2030. Oh, look at all these CCAs. Look at all the money they get. We can't take that away from them. We're going to keep Diablo Canyon open. I don't trust PG&E as far as I can throw them, which is not very far. So I think it's time for just to take the hard stance. And, you know, we all work really hard. Everybody in this room works really hard electrifying and working on the climate crisis. I think it's time to take an even tougher step. And for me, that is not, you know, it's only $12 a year. You know, sounds like to some customers that'll be a lot. Still, let's just take the hard step now. Thank you.
I'm going to abstain because I don't know if we fully fleshed out what the potential downsides are of this move. I am worried about some sort of expose, you know, something happening in the blogverse. I'm also worried about what happens in 2030 and, you know, will we just be, have we set a precedent by kind of supporting reliance on this? So I'm going to abstain.
This is a hard decision, but I think there are a couple of things that probably support fully hold my nose, as Stan says. But so the issue is it's a done deal. Newsom already negotiated this deal. It's done. It's on our bills. I mean, we should probably go after Newsom and recall him a fourth time. You know, we disagree with that. Vote for that. But it's a done deal. And as Stephen pointed out pretty eloquently, that we're kind of a monopoly here as PCE, and people on the peninsula and Los Banos don't have anywhere to go other than PG&E, which is way worse. I mean, they have coal, they got gas. So I would just say hold the nose, you know, do this and then take the savings and pour it into our electrification program, which may be at risk. As Raphael points out, if you know we have a budget shortfall, if we don't accept it. So I think in 2030, you know, we as citizens and we as, you know, PCE can emphasize to the voters when the stuff comes up again to vote this thing down. I mean, there are some serious concerns. Robert, if we have a tsunami or earthquake, we could have a meltdown. But the point is, even if we don't accept this, it doesn't change, it doesn't shut that plant down tomorrow. So that's kind of between that and nowhere else for a customer to go, push me, say, 3.
I think I'm leaning toward accept the savings, and I initially was thinking the middle ground scenario because it sort of minimized the appearance of being connected to nuclear while still benefiting from something here. But at this point, I don't think I feel strongly about 2 versus 3. So I think I'm inclined to accept the savings because I think we could do a lot of good with that funding to advance renewables and electrification and all of that sort of thing, and or maybe provide some teeny savings to customers at a time when everything else is jacking them up. That said, I've always been kind of proud of the fact that nuclear did not show up anywhere on PCE's power content label. I detest nuclear power for all of the reasons that have been laid out here and more. My family lived within the 100-mile, what was supposed to be evacuation radius for 3 Mile Island. So I have some personal history here. But setting all that aside and recognizing that this, whatever we do is, I don't think going to have any bearing on Diablo Canyon at all. I wish there was something that some action we could take that would be nudging it toward getting rid of or closing it down, but since it's irrelevant, anything we do would be irrelevant to whether the plant continues to operate or not. I'm leaning more toward looking at what's the fiscal effect for PCE. If we do accept it, I'm hoping that there's some way that PCE can provide some kind of explanation to the public, because I think of that teeny tiny percentage of people who do go look at the power content label, those are the ones who are looking for something to make a big, to do about and try to smear us somehow. So I think it's going to be really, really important to be able to explain it to the public, even though it's going to be a very, very small part of the public that's going to even pay attention to it. I think that makes sense, but that's where I am right now. You're up.
Like I said, I'm all in. Yeah, nuclear brings up all kind of emotions and feelings for various reasons. But like someone said, hold your nose. Logically, this is the fiscally responsible thing to do, in my opinion. Why are you going to leave that on the table? And worry about some possibly unintended consequences that we might not even have. Nobody looks at that anyway. It's already there. I mean, explain it to the public, absolutely. But capture that, in my opinion, and I would go with 3.
Yeah, it would be 3 for me, for a lot of the reasons that have been stated previously. I would like to see our commission or committee make a recommendation to the board that the savings be used to preserve programs as opposed to lowering rates. I think the programs have a much greater impact, especially on low-income residents. I was fortunate enough to electrify my home. I love it. I would love to see more low-income folks be able to do the same thing. This money could be used to preserve those programs or enhance those programs. So I'd like to see that part of our message to the board. And then, yeah, to Kathleen's point, I think getting out in front of any potential backlash would be a good strategy, and let your PR department figure out the best way to do that. But just letting them know why the decision was made and the benefits. I mean, PCE is a nonprofit, so this money savings or earned or whatever, it's not going to shareholders, it's going back into the community. And I think that's important.
I'm a long-term opponent of nuclear power. Back when I was a grad student at Cornell, there was a proposal to put a big nuclear power plant on Cayuga Lake. And I was one of the leading activists that helped beat that back in the early 1970s. Having said that, I support the third option. And I would like to see any savings go to our programs.
Last, so I'll take the prerogative to extend my answer. I agree with everything. Oh, well, I heard that, okay. Do you want to go first? Go. And for your last, I'm going for you. I agree with everything Diane and the plurality, if not majority of you said, but I'm categorically opposed to this and would vote for number one. And I have 4 quick points I'd make, and I'll turn it over. The first is the power content label. I looked at that over the week from the slides. It doesn't make sense. You say 12 plus 0 plus 0 equals whatever. It doesn't work.
It's
So
terrible.
my first comment is no matter what we do, it's gonna be the not transparent, confusing, they're hiding something from the thing. In that same point, when we've done tabling, I've often referred to that. Look at how great this is. One of the main things we show at every Earth Fair, at everything we've done, right? We always are talking about that card. Look at our procurement. Look how great it is. We're GHG free, we're carbon free, we're doing all these things. No nuclear. I've said that every time without thinking about it twice. The thing for me, and this is not logical or fair, I'm gonna say it emotionally because we live in those times. One of the big things we did as this committee was push the goals up, ask the board to push the goals up, get the greenhouse gas stuff earlier, beat the state by 10 years, move everything up. And one of those things was because we could do it. We didn't know how to do it yet, we were gonna do it. We were gonna do it with wind, solar, other things that were on the table, future developments, not the past ones. And I think that that was a big drive. I know it's hard, it might not be possible, but the drive was to do this without consideration of nuclear. So for me, as soon as you open that door, you set a precedent of, well, that's part of it. Even though we're not actually getting anything, it's part of the new dialogue, rhetoric. And it'll extend that forever. It will not be the new technology. It will not be the batteries. It'll be what other thing can we use to get to that point? And for me, that is not tenable at this time. And my third point is symbolically, I think it is crushing. If everybody does it, so be it. I personally don't want to be part of that. I see nuclear as being something, and this is my final point, which counters my other point, the equity piece. It's always the least among us that get the most hurt. They get the most hurt when there's a disaster, they get the most hurt when there's a fire, they get the most hurt when they have to rebuild, they're left to last, and they get the most hurt by the rates. And the rates are killing people. I cannot tell you this year how many people have told me, you told me to get a car, I got a used Tesla that barely works, and now I'm paying more than I've ever paid, threefold on my bill. I hate you, you lied to me, I'm never trusting you again. And so part of that for me is those are the people, and the Tesla's a bad example, because there are a lot of people in Teslas no matter what, but the point is that there is this feeling that people are getting taken. And I just don't know how this helps that, even for the $12 a year or $8 a year. All that being said, my last point is, if you do it all the way, because what's the point? But I'm opposed to it. So I think one is the way to go. But that's why I appreciate Joseph's comment. I'm like 99% one, but 1% three. And we lost her. Is she there?
Yes, she's
Coming free? You're up if you want to be.
Sorry, I was looking for a charger. I would say I'm fairly new, so just based on the conversations and the information provided today, I would go with 3. I would take the money that's there and like invest in our customers and the programs that are being offered.
And then, like, when we solicit, and you don't raise your hand if you want to change from your abstention to your present position, just so they can get a vote. If you don't want to say anything, you don't raise your hand. Just so they can get sort of a tally here. Or people that were in percentages, if they want to say anything.
And I guess ask, are there any other, not that I don't trust the administration of this organization, but are there any other downsides we haven't thought of?
We do public comment, if there's any.
We can do both, but I still have to get that.
That's good. Nice bit.
We do have a Brian raised for public comment, if you want to take that now.
Does anybody have anything they want to add who didn't speak yet? Okay.
I've been playing around with an idea, but I don't know if it makes any sense. If we take the money, I agree with all the comments that have been made about let's put it into programs. The only potential caveat I could see that would be, given that everybody's gonna have this $2 a month increase on their bill that we have no control over and nobody has any control over who's gonna have to pay it. Could we, take $2 per person per month and, put that as a savings on there so that at least, PCE could say, we're making you whole, we're not gonna let your rate go up because that's what everybody's so concerned about. It's a token, it's almost meaningless, but just as something to be saying, look, we took this to help you out so your rate doesn't go up and put the rest into programs. I don't know if that's worthwhile or not, but
Unfortunately, that would cost us more than we would save.
oh, I thought we were gonna have, maybe I got the numbers wrong. Okay.
Well, we're saving.
I thought we were saving $12
$12
per person per month.
person.
And that's,
That's
you know,
$1 per month, and then.
but then there wouldn't be money for
the
program.
Diablo Canyon charge is $2.
Oh, it was $12. I'm sorry. I was thinking it was
So we'll put
$12 a
in the
month.
whole
Never
line
mind. I should have looked at the numbers I wrote down instead of thinking from memory.
Conceptually, you could. but-
Yeah. Numbers were off. Sorry about that.
Again,
Never mind.
The other question I can have, and maybe to Roy or Jeremy can answer that question better. If the hydro attributes are very expensive, can we buy more solar and wind? Are those cheaper or they're even more expensive?
Roy, you want to take that?
Sure. So when we talk about wind and solar, the attributes used there are renewable energy credits or RECs. And that's different from the carbon-free attributes that comes from large hydro and nuclear. So in the market right now, bundled renewable energy credits are transacted at almost double the price of carbon-free attributes. So that's a very good point, because we could argue, like, for example, the line losses, the new requirement, we can use renewable energy credits to cover those rather than carbon-free attributes, but that will cost double. So to answer your question, there is a difference of premium for renewable energy credits coming from solar and wind and carbon-free attributes coming from large hydro and nuclear.
Can I offer a little bit of context there? Jason, if I may.
Sure, but then I want to get to the public comment, and Gail has a question. Go ahead, Raphael.
So what Roy explained basically in simple terms is that renewables are relatively expensive in the market. They're actually quite a bit more expensive than they have been historically. And I'm purposely not separating out the notion of attributes and energy for a moment. What's happened in the market overall is that right now, CCAs are a victim of our own success. We have created a lot more demand for renewables. That's in general a good thing. But the supply of renewables, actual installed supply, meaning new solar plants and wind and all of that good stuff, has not been able to keep up for a whole variety of reasons. And Roy and the Power Resources team is doing heroic work, right, to make it all work. And we do expect the market to improve as more stuff comes online. But we're in a very particular moment right now where renewables and greenhouse gas free is quite expensive in the market. And that's what's creating a big part of the budget pressure.
You have your question?
So I'm not quite sure who to direct this question to, but does accepting the allocations have anything, does that send a signal to PG&E or have any influence on whether Diablo Canyon stays open?
Great question. It has no influence on whether or not Diablo Canyon stays open or any other sort of operational issues around Diablo Canyon. But we thought about this, the question that you pose about, does it send the wrong message, right? To Robert, your point. And so one of the things that I failed to mention, but thank you for bringing it up, is that we are working on a joint letter to the governor's office, to the PUC, from whatever CCAs want to sign on, indicating that we are not in favor of any further expansion of Diablo Canyon. It's a slippery slope, and our action today.
Expansion or extension?
Yeah,
You said expansion.
Extension.
I'm sorry. Tired. Extension, not expansion. Thank you for correcting me. So that letter is not complete yet, but that is underway to try and mitigate against some of that perception that all of a sudden, oh, we're all for it. That's not the case at all. So.
Robert, do you want to, and then whoever, I didn't know who was on there, Vanessa, I don't see them, but whoever wants.
Just real quickly, most people here probably. What happens with these things? They do have an impact. Don, you're a great administrator. I love working with you, but I don't agree with that. I think in 2030, it's gonna come around again. Look at all the money that all the CCAs are going to, I can hear it now. And I think it does have an impact. Of course, by 2030, if we haven't solved the climate crisis, we got other problems. I think it will happen.
Mr. Whitehair, I want to tell you, I think they're already talking about that. They're already talking about post 2030. That's speculative on my part. And somebody asked a good question of Jeremy earlier, like, well, listen, the state agreed to put all this money to fix the cracks, to fix the problem, to make such a huge investment 2 years ago. I think that ship may have sailed, to your point, even before today, 2 weeks from now. So that is the unfortunate, perhaps, truth of that.
Yeah, that's one of my two main objections to accepting this money is that it just kicks the can down the road. And I'll stop there.
Let me really quick.
Thank you for your answer, Sean.
Let me grab the public comment and then Jeremy and then Randy.
Okay, thank you. We have a raised hand from Brian Schmidt. I will invite you to unmute.
He's not on our screen.
Good evening, Brian Schmidt here for Menlo Park. And I have to apologize, I cannot give an overall recommendation. I said Menlo Park, I meant to say Menlo Spark. I cannot give an overall recommendation on behalf of Menlo Spark. We need internal discussions on that. I can give some additional comments though. If most important of one being that we would support the idea that if PCE moves forward with this, that it uses the avoided costs for the benefit of programs. In addition, I think it might be useful to consider how PCE discusses in its terminology of regarding its use of renewable power. In particular, and this might be a lack of understanding on my part, I thought PCE will buy renewable energy certificates that are not bundled together with the power source itself. And on that basis, say it is purchasing renewable power. So I don't see much of a difference between that and saying that it could be using this nuclear allocation, but not purchasing nuclear power. It seemed kind of the same thing to me. I would also suggest that letter that is under discussion not only say that the CCAs don't support an extension of time for Diablo Canyon, but they don't want to pay for, if it does get extended, they do not want to be involved in paying for it. Let somebody else, if it's going forward, let others pay for it. And then finally, that I might have missed this in the slide showing the actual power content label from previous years, but it seemed to show a non-zero carbon intensity number for Eco Plus. So yeah, there we go. If you look at the far left, Eco Plus shows a figure of 9, which I'm assuming that there's residual emissions dealing with hydropower, large hydro. So would that change under any of these scenarios? It seemed the mock-up seemed to show that figure is 0. So I was just curious about that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Sean, do you want me to take some of the questions in the power content label? Okay. Yeah, so for the 2022 power content label, Eco Plus shows 9 pounds of emissions, and that's primarily coming from our geothermal facilities in our portfolio. And geothermal is considered renewable, but it does have a very small amount of emissions. And the reason that the 2025 power content label or mock power content label doesn't have any emissions in Eco Plus, although our geothermal contract is still there, is because the CEC has changed rules and that in the future geothermal resources are considered zero emission. So it's a regulatory change. And then I also want to point out there's this row in the middle, right underneath the graph. It says percentage of retail sales covered by retired unbundled RECs. That's what we call category 3 PCC RECs, and PCE doesn't have any PCC3 unbundled RECs. So all our renewable energy credits are bundled with energy that we procure from our solar and wind and geothermal facilities. Yeah, hopefully that helps.
Jeremy?
Yeah, just a quick point to the earlier conversation about the planned extension of Diablo Canyon and what might be being talked about politically. I just wanted to make it clear that we were not in the room. We were not invited to the room, and I don't think any CCAs were invited to the room when Newsom and the legislature had that initial conversation. So we can certainly take a more pointed position in anticipation and perhaps maybe get a chance to be in that room. But the reality is that it's a higher level of politics playing out than what we usually engage with.
Oh, you're sorry, Revy was next, Ethan.
Yeah, I'm just thinking with the Diablo Canyon that planted for 1986. So there's a lot of embodied carbon in that plant that already went into it. And I think overall, you know, let's put the nuclear meltdown issue aside, but that plant is already a sunk cost with embodied carbon already in there. That compared to a brand new solar plant or a brand new wind plant that has new embodied carbon energy going into building the solar panels or the wind turbine, that existing plant, you know, has very little embodied carbon energy. It's like taking an old building and remodeling. It's a lot less than building brand new building from scratch. But that being said, you know, there is that risk of the nuclear meltdown, and the question is the improvements that the state mandated PG&E to do keep that plant running another 6 years, is that sufficient to protect the public against a tsunami, you know, Fukushima type meltdown?
And are they even doing it?
Or an error like the cause Chernobyl, which was a human error, you know, reading the instruments wrong.
And Kathleen, before you go, let me read you guys the results. Sean wrote it down perfectly. I'm gonna round. So it's 2 for 1, 2 halves for 2, which equals 1, 8 for 3. And again, I'm rounding so far, okay? And then 2 abstentions. So it's currently at 2 for do nothing, a combination of ambivalence on doing something at 1, at 2 for 1, 8 people in favor of 3, and 2 abstentions. All right, Kathleen, go ahead.
Say that again?
I just want to say, I like Brian Smith's suggestion about the addition to the letter, about we don't want our customers, if you want to extend this thing, we don't want our customers paying for it.
Yep.
So I think that'd be a great addition to the letter. And then I was gonna request that the letter be posted on PCE's website, and that would help with the optics, yeah.
And we're clear, that's next round, PC customers don't pay the $2 Diablo charge. If they elect the new PCEs.
Excuse me?
Which might be pitting your recommendation for our notes in here.
I was kind of seconding Brian Schmidt's recommendation about adding to the letter that Sean mentioned, something to the fact that, you know, if the state decides, you know, we don't support extending Diablo Canyon beyond 2030, and if the state decides to go ahead and do that, we don't want our customers being charged for it. And then my suggestion, in addition, was just asking that the letter be posted on PCE's website So that we're making that very public a statement that we don't support this.
And I was further clarifying, that means the customer does not see the other canyon charge on the left side, on our part of the bill. Picture charge.
We can ask.
Sure.
Just real quickly, are any CCAs declining? You showed us a
I
long
don't
list
know
of.
what the tally,
I don't
I don't know what the tally is this year.
I didn't see marine clean energy on the list.
NCE is considering it, but they haven't taken their vote yet. They're kind of right where we are. But we can get back to you on that.
Yeah, I was just curious, and if so, what was their stand? What was the reasoning behind it?
I had the same question. I looked it up. There are 25 CCAs according to what I found, and 13 in your list. So that means 12 and 3. So there must be some out there not taking it.
Or have not decided yet.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Thank you.
Can I make a clarification on this table? This is a tally of Cs or LSEs. It does have PG&E on it. That's taken nuclear of more than 5% of their respective products. So it doesn't include. It's not a complete list of LSEs who are taking nuclear. So there might be ones taking 2%, 3%. That's not captured here. Just want to make that clarification.
That'd be a good footnote to put on the slide.
I have two requests. We can keep talking, but we are way over, which is okay, this is important. But I think I would suggest we do two things. One is we kind of read back and put on the board these suggestions, and then maybe we can bifurcate, because I will obviously be voting against the majority here, but I'd like to be able to support the recommendations subject to that. So I think we can make this a vote on what we want to do, and then a vote on what we want to add, and what we want to do, if that seems fair to everybody. And we can keep talking. I just want to throw that out there because personally, I'm trying to figure out what you guys have all said, and I'm not sure that we haven't, but we can.
Just had a comment on that page that's up there. It would be great if we can show all the CCA. Just not, it'll be great to show all 25 CCAs.
I'll try and get it. I'll try.
So we see where everybody stands.
Yep.
Let me solicit now, are there any questions, from anybody that's abstained or otherwise that want to have answered to make a decision on what they feel about this? For our staff and everybody else that's here?
Sure.
She just stepped away.
Okay, we can wait for it. You don't have to give a vote, I'm just saying, if you have any questions you want answered or thought about.
See, all the CCAs and the ones that have abstained or have not taken the allocation.
I'll throw in one thing and correct me if I'm wrong. In 2020, the board was gonna vote yes for this. And then COVID hit and they didn't need the money as much. Is that wrong? Is that a fair?
I was not here.
Okay.
I don't.
I think,
Thought in 2020, it had to do with the portfolio.
it did, and they just, the
No.
vote, the economic, this is not relevant, I'm just historically. The vote was gonna be yes, and then it went no, and this could be wrong, so if I'm wrong, I'm not trying to prejudice anybody. It wasn't? I thought the feeling was that, okay. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know we had a meeting where we were told the numbers had changed because of COVID, because there was so much less going on. And that affected the choice, no? All right, never mind.
Raphael might be able to respond.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't recall COVID being part of the discussion. What I will say is that the PCE's budget was in a substantial surplus, and we're about to go from a surplus position to a deficit position, where now we're carrying over funds, so the bottom line is going to look okay, but it's actually a deficit position.
And that was the conclusion I was getting to, was that I think the economics were different then than they are now. So I'm just, I was trying to get there, I probably got it wrong, but that's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, and the upshot being that if there's more budget pressure, I mean, the board has three choices. Increase use of the reserves, which are under pressure already, to raise rates or cut programs. Those are the three options.
So to reiterate, the 2020, there was a surplus, today we don't. Yeah.
I mean, we have met our threshold, right, we're within our policy for minimum reserves and we're not unhealthy, but we are showing a operational deficit going into next year.
Okay, but in 2020, you had
We did not have that.
you had a.
It happened the next year with COVID, but not related to the nuclear.
And I think you guys were trying to send a message originally in 2020 to shut that power plant down because Newsom hadn't made a decision yet.
Right.
But he's already decided.
I'll just quickly add, and Roy might have more specific numbers, but market premiums for capacity and greenhouse gas free attributes were lower in 2020 as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joseph.
If we were to go with option one, and I apologize, there's been so much discussion that I've forgotten some of the answers, but if we were to go with option one, and we take on more costs for procurement, which then would need to extract budget from other locations, is there a pecking order for which other programs or other sectors would be pulled from?
Not at this time, not at this time. I mean, essentially what it would mean is that our procurement budget would either, barely squeak by within the budget that we have allocated, or we would have to figure out how to, the deficit would get a little larger, and that's a bigger question too for next year. So it's too early to answer that question.
Or we have to raise rates.
That's right. That's right, because we have minimum revenue requirements around which rates are set.
And which one of the four rates do you have to raise? Do you raise them equally or one more than the other?
We typically set rates for an equal discount across all of our different products.
You know, the demographics of the four rate tables?
Within our products?
Yes.
I mean, what I can tell you is that for our Eco Plus product, that's our standard product. The vast majority of our customers are on that product, both residential and commercial. Our commercial customers, though, represent 60% of our revenue. So it's 60% of our load. So even though we have more residential customers, we have large commercial that take up a bigger share of the pie. I don't know, Raphael, do you know for Eco Plus, it's a pretty small percentage, right? Is it like 6%? Or Roy, do you know?
I think it's about 6%, but I don't know.
It's about 6% of our total customers participate in Eco 100, which is the voluntary 100% renewable, 100%.
It's very small.
Yeah, because that's a voluntary opt up to a more expensive product.
And then how about the other two?
I don't know who's in, Green Access is pretty small, even smaller than that, like maybe 1%.
Yeah, not even 1%.
The vast majority are Eco Plus default customers.
So about 95.
Yeah, 94%.
And for if there was an increase, is there also like low income foundation for low income?
Well, so there are care fairer rates that are offered by PG&E that PCE customers also avail themselves of. And then PCE customers then are also, we have discounted rates currently. So in this last year, and I'll just take a quick detour on this, there's a story to tell here and it's gonna get harder. Last year, you guys might remember that we froze rates at the beginning of this year at 2023 levels, which for the first 6 months of the year meant that we were on average of 10% to 15% less than PG&E for the first 6 months of the year. Then PG&E had a planned rate change in July. They then lowered their rates by, I think it was 12%, right, you guys? They lowered their rates by 12%, basically eradicating our rate savings. And then the board said, listen, it's important for us to still be under PG&E. So we're gonna eat that 12%, we're gonna match that and then come below that by 5%. So our discount currently sits at 5%, but when you see the impact of the whole year, it's actually more than that. And then we're hearing on the horizon, don't know yet, that PG&E is gonna drop their rates again come January, and the PCIA is scheduled to go up. So we've got some real pressure going on to manage
It's PCI.
our exit fee that the customers
The
pay.
money PG gets out of the PCE money to cover their losses historically.
Exit fee paid by all customers for departing load,
All CCs.
but our rates are set net of
You're
PCE.
already charging PCE customers for the line charge, because I'm not.
Separated from the bill.
Yeah. And what I've seen on my bill for the year.
Some water share. I'm choking on water, okay.
The PCI is what we pay PG&E.
Oh, so basically PG&E is extorting PCE. What it is.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, on my bill, when I see the difference, PG&E gives me, let's say, $100 credit. Right, and I pay maybe $98 to PCE, just to. So it's, I'm not paying 15% less.
On the generation side, not on your
No, I'm
entire
talking
bill.
about the generation side, because I see the credit that PG&E gives me for generation, and I see what I pay PCE, and I'm telling you, it's never 15%, so I'm not sure that.
It's 5% less than if you were a PG customer for the generation piece.
Yeah.
So if the generation piece is $100, you're paying 95 to us, PCE versus
Right.
100 you pay to PG. But in the aggregated bill, that's only a third of your electric bill.
Yeah, so I don't see.
If you have individual questions, so
Yeah.
come talk to us, like, let's chat after. Or next, during the
It's
workday.
close, it's a 6.5 on a dozen, so I picked you guys because it's clean. To begin with, and I think most of the Eco Plus customers do.
Do we have any other things, anybody want to take a vote here, to change their opinion or say anything? And then I would like, can you read it? Can you read what we have so far?
Oh, yeah.
Here's what we have on the table. We have to vote if we want to support or recommend to the board doing one of the three things or a combination. And then we have at least three other recommendations.
I also have it on the.
Oh, great.
Great, never mind, there you go. There's a recommendation that avoided costs go towards supporting energy programs, support PC's plan to write a letter arguing against the extension of Diablo Canyon after 2030. Recommendation to add the following point to the letter. If it extended after 2030, we don't want our customers to pay for it. And to request the California Energy Commission that Diablo Canyon attributes do not show up on our power content label. And there was a fourth one, I recall, Kathleen's, about making the letter public
On the website.
on the website.
Posted on the website.
Please. Does that seem like what everybody was getting at? Oh, go ahead.
I had made the suggestion that there be some sort of getting out in front of it with some transparency, with some sort of an announcement to customers on why the decision was made, but it's fine if nobody's.
You also made the recommendation about programs.
Yeah, it's up there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it's the first, never mind. Okay. Okay.
And then just to clarify that last sentence, that's for after 2030, right? Because we can't say that now, this is in the bill, that we have to be transparent.
I think you guys should definitely include that. I will just say that I think it's really important for our marketing team to take a look at this and see how other CCAs have dealt with this in the past too, in terms of how we communicate this and how much we communicate it. There's an art to this. So I want to make sure that we're just mindful of that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's important, the rest of that.
Yes.
Diane?
I like all of that, that looks great. Are we also going to make a recommendation of which option we think?
But I want to do this, I want to see if there's unanimity here, we can do it. Oh,
But then if we do that and a majority goes forward with very different opinions than the minority, can we make that recommendation and no respect for the alternative position or somehow?
Well, my suggestion
No,
is to
the
take a
split.
vote on the recommendation, and it can be straight up and down vote. Because I think it's, unless somebody wants to fight for two, which might be, we have three. But then I think we could also vote on this separately after we do the first vote. That would be my recommendation, just logically, but if someone objects, that's fine. Kathy?
I have some preamble language that might help.
That's what I'm looking for, thank you.
But I want to make sure that I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth. So before I read this, is there anyone here who would like to see, not that this is the question on the table, but just so that I can make sure I'm not writing something wrong. Is there anybody here who would actually
want to see PCE procuring nuclear power? Okay, is it safe to say that we are all opposed to PCE procuring nuclear power?
Not necessarily.
There's none to procure, yeah.
Could be possible in the future, but not at the moment.
So
There's
I'm
nothing-
not talking about it as a real possibility. I just, because my first statement here was, the CAC is unanimously opposed to procurement. This is like just kind of wanting to lay out our position here. CAC is unanimously opposed to procurement of nuclear power and to the extension of Diablo Canyon's operations. We take pride in the fact that PCE does not procure any nuclear power to meet its customers' needs. We are divided on the matter of whether PCE should accept a carbon-free attribute allocation from the extension of Diablo Canyon's operations that has already been mandated by the state legislature. If the board decides to accept the allocation, we unanimously recommend that the realized savings be used to support and expand PCE's energy programs. And we recommend all these other things. Does that help, and is that accurate?
I think I heard an objection earlier to that.
Okay.
Unanimous.
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can't just say the committee's divided. If we say we could say the vote. It's clear that there's a majority here who's there's option 3. And so I think just saying divided will really mislead the board.
Well, I think we'll take an actual vote. So we'll
Okay.
have a vote.
Yeah, okay, we have the actual vote.
Stephen, do you want it, would you be okay with that if it said majority, or do you not want it at all?
Oh, I'm just opposed to unanimous.
So could you say a majority?
Yeah. Majority, it seems, it wasn't a unanimous vote.
No, I mean, on the.
issue of nuclear power ever.
Oh, well, we'd have to take a vote on that.
I had unanimous in 2 places, so I'm trying to figure out which.
I'm okay with the second one.
Okay, okay. So the
You
CAC
emailed-
Just off topic to mention that about, like, we're not talking about procuring nuclear. And so to keep it cleaner and like more directed, the question at hand, I wouldn't include it.
I just think it was for clarity for past precedents and history on CAC's opinion on nuclear versus why we're possibly voting for one tonight. Is how I was understanding that.
I'm not sure, I couldn't hear what you said, and I'm not sure I understood that.
Oh, it's more putting out an opinion about nuclear procurement, which is not really the question at hand. And so I don't know if it's necessary to include that.
It's not what's before us right now. I was just trying to capture kind of the sentiment of the group, but if that's not appropriate to put in here, I get it. And your point was what?
But yeah, that you were just, it was basically a historical document based on our past opinions on nuclear.
Yeah, it just seemed like Roy felt so strongly about that, but.
Given the late timing, I
Yeah.
wonder if we should just vote on that.
I'm
And
fine with that.
if folks want to add additional comments, and maybe we could send letters.
I encourage anybody that feels strongly to send your opinions individually to the board.
So we're gonna vote on one other item that's not up there, and that's where you've already taken a vote on the attributes. And that was,
You're not taking the vote, 'cause we still have abstention. We have a poll. You're not taking a vote. Yeah.
But you can abstain in a vote.
Right, we want to do it, I think we should do it again. We can just
Right,
do a roll
right,
call, and we
okay.
can choose.
I wasn't clear, thank you
And
about
I
it.
think, and I also, by the way, I think you could say, if you want 2, you say 2, and then that'll be the recommendation, be 8, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, whatever it is. And how many ever abstentions, and then we can have this language hopefully be unanimous from the group after that decision has been made in effect. That would be my preference.
Sounds good.
Okay, does anybody have anything else that they want to raise? I think we've come to a consensus, and I appreciate you said, I want to say one more quick thing. I want to thank Sean and Roy and Jeremy and Raphael, because this was one of the best presented things we've ever had. Despite my losing my vote on this, I think you guys did an excellent job of fairly and transparently presenting. I mean, this is not how I do things. I'm an advocate. This was very well done. And I think you guys should be commended for that. And I'm hoping that this will help in the next wave, because and hopefully hearing us will help you with that too. Go ahead.
I want to add that you all got the staff report and the stuff to us ahead of time. That was very.
That was very nice.
Very much appreciated. It gave me time to look at it and make, form my position and look at things. So thank you for doing this.
And despite the
I know
hour,
that's not easy.
the hour and 20 minutes more we spent on this, I think that this is one of the quickest we've gotten to a point we ever on something like this. All right, but I recommend that, unless anybody else had, anybody want to change the vote?
I just have some wordsmithing on that.
Go ahead, please do it.
Again, Nessa mentioned on the last one, it should be requested the attributes do not show up on the power content label after 2030. Because that's associated with 2030 after.
Yeah.
Can we say
Our intent is
future
never.
years?
If we vote for the thing, I have a big problem with that. I wouldn't be able to support that. Because then we're basically not transparent to our customers. If we accepted the attributes for 2025 to 2030, and we don't put that on our label, and we're required by law, I think, in Sean's presentation, so that bottom sentence has to be 2030, otherwise.
Yeah, that's how I understood it as well.
Well, plus
I
two,
understood it as post 2030.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that. I'm confused when I read that thing. So can we just add 2030
No,
there,
what-
Vanessa?
On the question, 2030 being added to that is less transparent for me. Say it now, what we're proposing right now. My proposal, if we're gonna do it, let's just,
Can
let me
we-
finish, please. Did it not show up on our power bill starting now? That would be the greatest chance I think you guys would have of getting it. If you wait till 2030, they may put you off. And I wanna be transparent now.
I want to recommend we take it out if it's controversial, because if we say post 2030, then we're kind of implicating that it might live on past its sunset date, which I don't think we want to do.
I also wanna, am I allowed to do this? Am I out of order? Because I'm not part of the committee,
Public
so I wanna
comment.
respect that, but I also like, there's a reality check on some of this. We could request this, it is a statutory issue, and it is a regulatory issue, so, and I would have so, and I feel the same way about proactively communicate, this has to all kind of go through the filter of what we can actually reasonably accomplish at the CEC. And to be blunt, that ship has sailed on this topic.
And I think the time you would spend on that last item, I'm not sure it's worth it.
I just think it's probably barking up the wrong tree.
I think,
so,
I would agree with you.
Sorry.
So we're gonna remove the last
Take
one.
it out.
I think for the sake of doing this, we should do that.
Yeah, I think it's.
I'm okay, I want to say though, on the first one, I think it's okay that we're not telling you to do it, we're recommend, this is our opinion on the first one, so I think that one's okay. Okay. All right, well then here's what I think we should do. You'll all be excited to know that our lovely attorney has suggested we can move the Brown Act Treaty to another meeting, so we still got more things to do, but we'll put that. But I think what we can do is do a roll call on your vote of 1, 2, 3, or abstain, and do a second roll call vote quickly on this recommendation as constructed. Is that a fair way to do this?
Yes.
Okay, so I do, we need a motion to do the roll call part.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of your question.
First part is we're gonna go around the room and vote 1, 2, 3, or abstain on the proposal, but do we need to do a motion to enact that roll call vote?
Yes, we do. And we also just need to welcome any public comment right before we take that vote.
Is there any more public comment on this before I get someone to make a motion? And I'll tell you what to make the motion in a second. I'm seeing none in the room or online. Do you see me, Vanessa?
No.
Okay, so someone, not me, because I'm voting against this, move that we take a vote on which of the 3 scenario, what's the title for this? The procurement? Attribution procurement, what are we calling it?
Board decision on whether or not to accept the nuclear attribute allocation.
A motion on a recommendation for the board decision to, what you just, what Sean just said. Does somebody have that down there?
Nuclear attribute allocation
Thank you.
from 2025 to 2030
Diablo
Diablo
Canyon.
Canyon.
It's the title of the
Could I
presentation.
get a motion?
DG&E.
I so move. Michael moved for that. Can I get a second? Start the vote. Me?
Yeah.
Okay, second for me. Okay, so Vanessa, could you please do a roll call vote on that?
Now are we doing 1, 2, 3?
1, 2, 3 or abstain?
Abstain?
Again, right?
Yeah, we're doing it again. 'cause we
Okay,
had
but
people that
I'll
may
check
have
it.
different
Okay,
votes, yeah.
thank you. I'll check it.
So A is status quo, don't take it. Option 2 or B is middle ground.
Yes.
Option 3 is all in. Okay, or abstain.
Yes.
Thank you. Diane Daly,
3 all in.
Stephen Booker,
3.
Joseph Chen,
3 all in. 3.
Michael Clausen,
3.
Kathleen Goforth, Melee Humuli, Aurelio Huizar, Gail Lee, option 1. John McKenna,
3.
Jason Mendelson,
1.
Daniel Sarai, Cheryl Shaw,
1.
Jeremy Tan,
3.
Desiree Fair, option 3. Robert Whitehair.
1.
I missed some of those, I'm afraid.
So I got 0 for option 2, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So by my count, it was 8 for option C or 3 and 4. So is there one person missing? What about the new member?
Yeah. We still have,
Correct.
John there.
Everybody else is 3.
Oh, she had to sign off? Okay.
So wait, let's wait for her if she can. Jennifer, can we wait on that last vote and move on to the second phase, just to get it going, or is that not okay?
I think that would be fine.
Let me double check this.
No, it's not 6, you're not doing it correct.
It was 4 for A and 8 for option C.
8 and 1 pending.
And 1 what?
1 pending.
1 pending.
Yeah.
Actually double check that I have it correct.
Okay.
Desiree for 3, Joseph for 3, Diane for 1, no, Diane for 3, Robert for 1, Remy for 3, Kathleen for 3, Stephen for 3, John for 3, Michael for 3, Jason for 1, Damon
You
Pete
don't
for
know yet.
3.
That's pending.
Oh, I'm sorry, which one?
Dama Pete's pending. We didn't hear her. That was her original vote.
That was her original vote. Okay, got it. Pending, and then Cheryl for 1 and Gail for 1.
Yes, that's what I have. Anybody?
Okay, got it.
Okay, great. So then could I get a motion to adopt this resolution, which you can read on the board. Do you want me to read it in, Jen? I'll read. Motion, recommendation on the board. Oh, we already did that part. Motion 2.
Yes, please read it in. Thank you.
Okay, do we want to say if? Yeah, okay, yes. If PCE accepts the nuclear attributes, the CAC recommends that avoiding costs to go towards supporting energy programs. The CAC recommends that staff proactively communicate this issue to our customers. The CAC supports PCE's plan to write a letter arguing against the extension of Diablo Canyon after 2030. Recommendation to add, let's say it the same way, PCE recommends to add the following point to the letter. If Diablo Canyon is extended after 2030, we don't want our customers to pay for it. And we recommend that they post the letter publicly on the PCE website. I would just make the recommendation to CAC recommends.
I move that we put that motion.
I have an only amendment to that motion. It's the first paragraph, was to supporting renewable electric energy program.
I'm fine with that.
And can you take the word 2 out of that first line of motion 2? Recommends the avoided costs go down to 2 though.
These just after supporting electric.
Which one, which paragraph, I'm sorry?
Renewable, the first.
Okay, if,
They just took out 2. But that would eliminate electric.
I just said renewable and electric.
Okay.
Electrification.
Renewable and electrification
Electrification
programs. Yeah, that's correct.
Renewable energy.
We get
Oh. Except that.
Yeah.
Okay, let me read it again. Robert is moving for this. If PC accepts the nuclear attributes, the CAC recommends that avoided costs go towards supporting renewable energy and electrification programs. The CAC recommends the staff proactively communicates the decision to our customers. The CAC supports PC's plan to write a letter arguing against the extension of Diablo Canyon after 2030. The CAC recommends to add the following point to the letter. Diablo Canyon extended after 2030. We don't want our customers to pay for it. Post the letter publicly and to post the letter publicly on the PC website.
Can we change it instead of saying supports PC's plan to write the letter, that we just recommend that we write the letter? That the letter be written?
Okay, I think you're doing it right.
We are, it's a joint letter, it's not just us.
Oh,
It's a joint CCA letter.
because it's not the plan, it's the actual letter.
Supports a letter, a joint CCA letter, because that's what it is. Arguing
Joint,
against the
right,
extension.
joint, oh no, go back. Yeah.
But all the other CCAs here, do they agree with everything we're saying about not having their customers pay?
I don't know, we
I
have,
don't think it matters, because we're saying they should do it anyway. We don't care what they think at this point.
Oh,
We're
well.
recommending this.
Then if they don't agree, you can't do a joint letter, you gotta do a separate letter.
We're supporting that we do a joint letter. So then let them.
I don't think there's gonna be a separate letter. And secondly, I think we should give the administration the authority to write the letter. I trust that you're.
You don't need the joint, just say write a letter.
I think that's okay.
Letter.
I think that's okay. All right, let me read the second part of the motion again. The CAC supports PC's plan to write a letter arguing against the extension of Diablo Canyon after 2030. The CAC recommends to adding, yeah. Okay, perfect. It recommends the addition of the following point to the letter. If Diablo Canyon is extended after 2030, we don't want our customers to pay for it, and to post the letter publicly on the PC website. Robert so moves.
Yeah, I so move.
Can I get a second? How many seconds it? Thank you. All right, let's do a roll call on that one, and then is.
Support. Stephen Booker. Joseph Penn.
Aye.
Michael Kaufman.
Aye.
Kathleen Goforth. Aye. Neve Himu. Valerio Pizzo. Gail Lee. Aye. John McKenna.
Aye.
Jason Mendelson.
Aye.
Devin Sarab. Cheryl Shack.
Aye.
Remy Tan.
Aye.
Desiree Thayer. Yes. Robert Whitestar.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Jennifer, before I move on, are we allowed to go back if we get our member back? Or can we just take the vote as it is right now? We have a quorum.
If we are not going back, we need to go ahead and finalize that first vote. I don't see the member rejoining us online, so I think I would recommend going ahead and finalizing that before we move on to the third option.
All right, so then the final vote, unless she joins by the time I finish saying this, was 4 for 1, 8 for 3, no abstentions. Okay? And that was the final vote for option 1. You got, okay. And I think we've spelled out, okay, I'm not gonna say that, that's great, okay. I've lost an agenda in here. We are, can you help me out? What next?
We're on there.
Passes unanimously.
Yeah.
We did from those who were here, yes.
Yes.
You guys didn't write it on there.
Roy and Jeremy, have a good evening.
Thank you, guys. We're going to skip the Brown Act. I will take public comment on skipping the Brown Act since it's on the agenda. Great, okay. So then government BE grant announcement, Vanessa and Kathleen, if you want, are going, okay, maybe not, I'm gonna speak to this. I will let everyone know really quickly, it is 8:57. So I may request we push the working group, well, let's see what you guys want to do. We may put it, go ahead. I want to hear the government BE, please.
So basically, the government BE program, which provides loan funding as well as incentives to our member agencies for their electrification projects. The committee has finalized the recommendation on which programs are to be funded. I want to thank Kathleen for her role on supporting the committee. And the projects that are moving forward are here on the slide. I did receive confirmation that we are planning to do a press release and share this information very soon. And so I will share that information with you all. And then this slide I'll post on the website if you'd like to refer to it in the meantime.
Again, BE stands for building electrification.
All right, any public comment? Oh, go ahead, Stephen.
When, so I live in Half Moon Bay, so when it says full electrification of all Half Moon Bay buildings, what does that encompass?
Yeah, I believe it's a portfolio of the different city facilities. And I can get you the list of those buildings.
Oh,
I can tell you a little bit. There's gonna be at least one EV charging station, HVAC at multiple public buildings. An electric, which I assume is induction and cooking at facilities that are used by community members. And, there's a failing heat pump that's gonna be replaced, and I think that was about it. Yeah, but multiple buildings and statements fully electrified. Yes.
Michael?
Where was that?
So we talk about Half Moon Bay buildings and Los Palos buildings. These are city buildings, right?
Yes.
I think we can make it clear.
Well, that's the
Okay.
GovBE. It's government building, but government building electrification.
It's government and like community buildings, you know, that maybe used to.
Yes.
Is there any public comment? Thank you. The next thing is working group work. Anyone?
Actually, Jason, if I may, sorry to intercede, I wanted to thank Kathleen for her participation on the committee to do the evaluations and provide actually input on the front end. So thank you very much, Kathleen, for that.
This was a fun project, it really was. We have another opportunity like this, I would encourage people to volunteer because it was really.
So this is like one of our members, you able to help with this project.
Yeah, but then the evaluation, we're on a committee with those efforts, the flake and make recommendations about which project we had.
So this is outside of the tax.
Yes.
Like how these are mostly lower impacted.
That was one of the.
It's parallel to. The data.
If any of the working groups wanted to report, and if not, that's great, and we'll skip it for next time. I think we'll do a big building electrification one next time. Okay, great. Any public comment on working group reports that were not given? Okay. Okay, great. Marketing community liaison update. Kirsten, do you want it? Vanessa, do you guys want to do anything here?
We'll do it quickly. Pass this to Vanessa.
So we're gonna be out in the community again. One of the exciting updates is around Caltrans electrification. Yay, electric trains. And we invite you all, if you'd like to help us out at our table, talk to our customers, hear what their concerns and questions are. Then we have a number of trips where we would love to have you. So please let us know if you're available during any of these times and we'll write you down.
Yeah, let's say I know we solicited your help in the spring for Earth Day events. We have almost as many events coming up in the next couple of weekends in September and October. So again, we would, if your folks are excited about outreach, we would love your help. We can send out these dates in an email so you can check your calendars and get back to us. But it's really fun to come out and help us table, and it would be a huge help because the outreach staff are looking at working multiple weekends in a row, and it's just be a great help.
Thank you. Anything else on that?
No, I thank you in advance for folks who come out and help
Public
us.
comment on that. There being none, I'm going to move on to upcoming topics. I will suggest if you have something you want to do, email to Kirsten and Vanessa. And then Kathleen and I can help figure out things like, do you want to do the board stuff?
Yes, so upcoming topics for discussion. The October board meeting is going to be our annual board retreat. And I believe that will be focusing on strategic planning. And so we would like to bring some strategic planning kind of preview discussion to you all for your October meeting. I think that will be another kind of big hefty item. So that is the proposal for your October meeting is the strategic planning feedback from you all.
What date is the annual board retreat?
October, hold on, 26th, I think, one moment.
October 24th.
24th, thank you. Thursday, the meeting will start at 5:30, about an hour early from the regular meetings and adjourn by 9:30 latest.
You can join, you can come here or you can do it virtually as usual. And it's fun. For news people, it's where a lot of the sausage gets made, but it's also it's where you get a picture of what's really going on.
This is where the board meeting.
It's the big annual.
The retreat.
So, yeah.
When we say retreat, it's not, they're not actually going anywhere. We're meeting here. It's just it's a longer board meeting. That looks, I think so. Yeah, it's a longer board meeting that kind of looks big picture strategically at you.
Anybody else want to add anything now, or is there any public comment on future topics? Okay, seeing none, and no one raising their hand. The last thing is committee member reports. Nobody better have a committee meeting report. You speak now. Meeting report.
I just wanted to comment that the transportation electrical Matt Raphael, who's still on there, gave a wonderful presentation. So that was kind of like a kickoff meeting.
Any public comment on that? Raphael, do you want to say anything?
Like, sure.
He's like, thanks, I'm going to bed.
Good. I think that is.
We like
it.
short
I-
reports.